Started, shall we? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to February 2nd meeting of the School Building Committee. It is exactly 6 p.m. and we will get things started. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and published to the public. Excuse me one second. Let me pull up my agenda. Ms. Linville, I know I did not see anything come through for public comment. I'm assuming you did not as well because I didn't hear that you had. All right.
Nothing here.
All right, great. So Margaret, if you are good to go, we will turn things right over to you to review the proposed and negotiated fee schedule.
Yes, so welcome everybody. I just want to say it's a really exciting moment. It's sort of taken us a little while to get there, but we have our architect on board, and I'm going to introduce them in a minute and ask them to say a little bit about themselves and their work. I mean, you've met them in the interview, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I do want to say we successfully negotiated a fee, which I think is a very good deal for the city, and the contract has been executed and is back in the hands of the architects. So we're off and running. So the biggest thing that I am going to tackle today is I'm going to, with the assistance of Mount Vernon Group, we're going to walk through a kind of very high level schedule that's going to explain the different kind of streams of activity that are going to be going on over the next few months. So Erin, should we launch, I think we should introduce Mount Vernon Group at this point and then toggle to that. Does that make sense? Okay. So I know I saw Chris LeBlanc. I see Dennis Daly. Do I see your fearless?
I do not see anybody else from Mount Vernon Group yet.
Okay. So I think Dennis and Chris, we're expecting Frank to join, right? He's the only one that's missing.
He's coming in.
He's coming in. Okay.
Virtually.
All right. So I'm gonna just while we're waiting for Frank to join up. So yes, Frank is the fearless leader of Mount Vernon Group. Dennis works very closely on the programming piece of the project, and Chris LeBlanc is going to be your local guy because he is in Chicopee. So with that, Frank, I was just telling everybody that you've got your executed contract back in your hands, that we're really grateful.
Yes, thank you very much.
Having you here. And what I wanted to do was just to give you all a couple minutes to kind of reintroduce yourself to the team now and remind us of your roles. And then we will toggle to the schedule that the group of us had worked on earlier this week to sort of look at the overview of the project.
Sure.
So does it, Frank and Chris and Dennis, is it helpful if we start by actually going around and restating who the committee members are? Would that be helpful to you?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to call on people, and I'm going to use a little bit of different order than I have been using. So I see, is Camilla here? She's the first on my list. Camilla? Okay, so Camilla is going to, can Camilla or the translator perhaps help sort of fill us in about Camilla's role in the community? You're a parent, right?
Sí, soy padre de un niño de la escuela y soy parte del comité de la construcción del nuevo building de la escuela.
Terrific. Okay, so how about David Yost next? David, can you unmute yourself and say hello? There he is.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm on the parking lot using and I'm a grandparent of children in the schools, and I'm very involved in the financial aspects of this project, trying to keep the finances on track.
Yeah.
Great. And Deborah Vega?
Good evening. Welcome back. My name is Deborah Vega. I'm a member of this committee and a parent and a member of the programming subcommittee. And thank you for being here.
Thank
Jamie
you.
Morrow. Is Jamie with us? Yes.
I'm Jamie Morrow. I'm the Assistant Chief Procurement Officer for the City of Holyoke.
Great.
How about Jessica Perella? Let's see, Jessica.
Hello.
Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry, I had difficulty. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Vernon Group. My name is Jessica Perella. I have 4 children in Holyoke Public Schools in the elementary level, and I'm a student myself. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Kathy Ortiz?
Thank you. My name is Kathy. I am a member of the school committee. I work for College and Career Readiness Program through VOC called Gear Up. And I don't have any children, but I work in the community as well. I'm also a student. I'm not here.
Okay. And Mark Leupold.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Leupold. I'm a volunteer on the school building committee. I'm on the building and design subcommittee, which we haven't been able to do too much work up to this point. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting those things going. I was able to tour your facility down there and
Yes.
enjoyed your school. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully bringing that within budget that we could all live in and get our kids a much needed school that they need. So welcome aboard.
Yes.
Thanks, Mark. Peter Tallman.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out again. City Councilor at large, and I'm a member of the Finance Committee here in the City of Holyoke, and looking forward to see what we have to talk about tonight.
Raina Lorenzi.
Hello, I'm Raina Lorenzi, and I'm a member, and I have 2 children in the school system. And then, yeah, I'm excited. So welcome. I can't wait to see what this goes.
Next on the list, we've got Whitney Anderson, who's a voting member, and he is sitting with Ron Collimore, who is longtime school committee member, not a voting member of the committee.
Yes, Mr. William R. Collimore, to my left, is the longest standing continuous serving school committee member in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Wow.
It's quite something. So I'm honored to be here with Ronnie. And unfortunately, Ronnie's brother passed away recently. So we send our condolences, Ronnie.
Yeah, just as an aside, Ronnie, how many years have you been on the school committee?
44.
Oh, well,
Wow.
you beat, we were in the city of New Bedford. We did 4 schools there over the years from the 90s to the early teens. And the longest serving committee member at that time was Jack Nobriga. And he passed away. He had done 43 years. So you've just edged him out.
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie's still got some mileage to go. He's having his roof done now, so he's planning on another 30 years, Frank.
Oh, that's
I think
What
he's the
exactly?
longest.
yeah.
The roofers are still on the roof.
Well, you want to make it through the warranty period anyway.
Exactly.
So
He will,
All right.
he will.
Frank and Dennis and Chris, we are delighted to have you on board. I know it's been quite a process. We appreciate everybody's diligence. I'm Whitney Anderson, Maintenance Administrator of the Holyoke Public Schools. Very excited to be part of this.
Superintendent Soto.
Good evening, everyone. Anthony Soto. I am the superintendent here in Holyoke and also a proud graduate of Holyoke Public Schools. Look forward to making this happen for our students.
And then we have Erin Brunel.
Good evening. I'm Erin Brunel. I also have 2 children in the Holyoke Public School systems. I am school committee member at large. I've been on the committee for 9 years now, and I'm honored to be the vice chair of this committee. So welcome back, and we look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you.
Erin Linville, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Erin Linville. I'm a staff member at Holyoke Public Schools. Thank you for being here. I also wanted to share that Jackie Glishine is also a staff member and had a problem at her house. So she can't be here tonight, but I'll update her tomorrow.
Great. And last but not least, our fearless leader, Mayor Garcia.
Hey, congratulations, and very much looking forward to working with you and trying to figure out how we can keep our project at the $500 per square foot or less as presented.
Yes.
2 children in the school system. I grew up, born and raised here in the city, proud graduate, just like Mr. Soto, of the school system here in the city of Holyoke. And now in this special role of mayor, and working with these wonderful folks on this committee and trying to navigate the complexity behind what it takes to build this facility so that our children and future generations to come have a wonderful learning environment they can definitely be proud of. So welcome and thrilled to see how you can take us through these next steps.
And then I also want to recognize Wendy Weiss. Wendy, do you want to say hello? Wendy is a working group member.
Hi, I'm Wendy. I have currently 2 kids in the school, and 1 would start next year or the year after.
Great.
And I'm a social worker in the community. Thank you.
So I'm going to turn it back over to Frank, Dennis, and Chris just to, I think, maybe remind us of your roles, and then we'll start talking about the process.
Okay. Well, I'm Frank Tedesco. I'm the principal in charge for the project, and it's really an honor to be in Holyoke. We've been eyeballing you for many years over in Chicopee. We saw projects come and go, and we weren't successful at getting them. So we're really happy to be here. I would just say that this process of going through is something that Holyoke needs and deserves. You're entitled to the reimbursement. We see the reimbursements going to other communities around the state, and we should get that and try to maximize the reimbursement as much as possible. That's really our role and our goal, and we hope to, we should all rally behind the fact that this is for the kids and it's for the future. They need to, in order to compete, they need adequate and equitable facilities in order to have that teaching experience and learning experience that they deserve. So that's always our goal, is to do it for the kids. I always think of myself back in the 1st grade, going to my first elementary school and then to the middle school, and how I felt about it. And I always try to think of the kids in your community and how they will react to the school that this group puts together for them. So it's an honor to work with you, and we're looking forward to it, and we will be successful.
So Frank, where was your elementary school?
It was in North Woburn, Massachusetts. We lived in GI housing. My father was a veteran, so we lived in a housing project in North Woburn. And we used to walk to school, and we went to the Rumford Elementary School. And it was just a wood school, but we had a teacher, the 1st grade teacher, was one of the biggest influence on my life. We had all GI kids in that school, and they were all different ethnic backgrounds and races, and she treated us all like we were princes and princesses. She was just a wonderful person, and that was the experience I had. So I have great faith in the public education process. We reach the kids so that they get the experience that they're in America and they are worthy of this great education. So that's how I have always approached how we do our schools.
Super. So who wants to go next, Dennis or Chris?
Yeah, Dennis.
Dennis, I can go. So I'm Dennis Staley, and I also in the city of Woburn, Massachusetts. I grew up in the South End, and I was the kid with the Irish name in the Italian neighborhood. My mother is from Italy, as is Frank's father, who is, by the way, my mother's brother. And so I grew up in the the Italian neighborhood in the South End with the Irish name. So it was kind of an interesting thing in terms of learning about diversity and learning about acceptance of other people. We also had a large Portuguese community nearby. So we had a very mixed sort of neighborhood, and everybody got along really quite well, although people really did make distinction about being Sicilian or colored. That was sort of
And though he's my cousin, he's younger than me, and he has to respect everything I say. But I think an important factor with Dennis and his understanding of special needs is that Dennis has a special need son. And I really have admired over the years his dedication to that boy. So that comes in. He always looks at what can we do better in our designs to assist these people. And I've always admired that.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, my son, Brendan, he's our youngest. He's 37. And when he was going to school, people were just starting to become enlightened. They were still teaching kids in closets and under stairways, things like that. So, or abandoned locker rooms, interesting places for learning. But so I do have a very special place in my heart for special education and, and all the therapists and specialists that work with the children. And I'm very excited about working in a community that has such a strong commitment towards inclusion and what seems like a very good and strong special education system. Also, your enrichment programs with art and drama and music mean a lot to me because so besides being trained as an architect, was trained as an art teacher in the era of art and art, as they used to say. So I've also have a very special place in my heart for that. So I'm really quite excited. Thank you very much for having us aboard.
That's great. Chris?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Chris LeBlanc. I'll be your project manager for this project. I've been with Mount Vernon Group for about 23 years now. As Frank mentioned, I work out of the Chicopee office, so I'll be your local contact. I've grown up in Western Mass, actually in Ludlow. I've been there my whole life and raised my family there. So my role in this capacity is going to be to help manage the design team and our consultants to help this committee and the city of Holyoke realize their goals in building a new state-of-the-art school to meet your needs. Any questions, just feel free to ask, call, or the Chicopee office will help you out.
Great. Okay, well, so let me, the main event today is to try to give you all a picture of the next intense period. So, it took us a while to get here, but we've got a designer. We have a date that we're committed to submitting to the MSBA, the schematic design package. And that is, so we're really just going to talk about that tonight. But if we are able to meet that deadline, it plugs into the other schedules that we've seen. And I can revisit both, but what I'm going to start with is what needs to happen in the next couple of months. So as an overview, the MSBA has submittal deadlines for certain dates upon which they're going to review and vote on projects. And so the submittal deadline that we are shooting for is April 26th. So we'll talk in later meetings about what's going into this, but you should think of this submittal as being the document which is going to be used as the basis of the funding agreement with the MSBA. So the goal of this, we have, essentially we have a conceptual design, we have a site, we know approximately where the building's going on the site. Now it's Mount Vernon Group's job with the big group of consultants that they have working for them to detail and draw and dig into this in sufficient detail that two estimators can do estimates in parallel. And so if when we look at this, I want to just say it would be great if we had another month in here. But what's really driving this, and you'll see this in the schedule, is getting to April 27th with time for you to review the estimates and time to do the estimates. So with that, I'm going to pull up this document. I believe Erin shared it. If you want to look at it on your own screen at a bigger scale. And let me just explain what I was trying to do with this diagram. So you could think of this as being, there's 4 kind of different activities that are happening that involve different groups of people over this period of time. So, up at the top here is just the weeks, right? So the dates are the first day of the week from now until the week that we need to make the submission. The 4 lines are the middle school building committee activities, the design team, so that's Mount Vernon Group and their consultants, and to some extent myself, because I have pieces of work to do here as well. Then there are some things that need to happen in the district that feed into the work that the consultant team is doing. And then we also want to have a community engagement process. So this is tentative, but what we'd like to do, what we think will work, is to have a meeting. I don't know why this is 2/5, but let's just change that now to today's date. So this is 2/2. Come on. So this is where tonight we're reviewing the schedule overview. We want to meet pretty much every other week. And you can see we're skipping over and doing that the school vacation weeks. This date, the week of April 10th, April 13th, is a very important meeting because that's where this entire package will get presented to you. And then 2 weeks later, right after vacation, this is when you would vote. You have to vote as a committee to authorize the submission to the MSBA. So to get there, and I will tell you that the agendas for these meetings may change a little bit, but this is what seemed to us would be a good starting point. Mount Vernon Group will come back in 2 weeks. They will have had a chance to meet with the educators, and they're going to basically say, here are the updates that we're proposing to the plans, and here's how we're meeting your program. Then, right at the week after the February vacation, they would make a presentation on the options for the building exterior. So those of you saw the Goodenow School, and remember in the proposals, Mount Vernon Group actually outlined some options for that. And then 2 weeks later, we'll look at the site plan, which includes both civil engineering and landscape engineering work, and the so-called basis of design. So the basis of design is what the typical materials are in the building and any assumptions that are sort of underpinning the design that you might not see as a physical thing. Like you're not going to see like, oh, this is a piece of steel, but it's a steel frame. That's the basis of design. 2 weeks later, there would be a presentation on building systems, and then we're sort of, it's going to be fast at the end of the process. So I do want to ask, these meetings will need to be 2 hours. I would really like to ask if everybody could put aside these times. Again, the agendas may change a bit, but I don't expect that. We certainly can't do this in fewer meetings. So if Mount Vernon Group comes forward and says that they want to add a meeting, we'll sort of deal with that as it comes, but this seemed like a good starting point. I'm going to skip over this consultant team piece and ask Mount Vernon to speak to it after I just talk briefly about the district piece and the community engagement piece. So the district piece is really getting feedback from both the leadership and the staff. Mm-hmm. So we've tentatively plugged in a couple of meetings that Erin is coordinating, and the dates, I don't know, Erin, are these pretty fixed? Kind of fixed?
No, I have to review with Superintendent Soto, but I'm hopeful that I've looked at the calendar and I'm hopeful they should work.
Okay, so there's a leadership meeting tentative, and then we would have a meeting the design team would have a meeting with the different departments to look at the different parts of school. And then that's kind of early in the week. At the end of that week, we have another building committee meeting and we can give you any updates.
Right.
And then down at the bottom here.
Can I just say real quick, Margaret, so folks know, because I felt like when we were meeting last week, I was getting personally confused on this. So it's different, like there will be meetings, as you see in cell G6, that are with the city departments like police and fire. Mm-hmm. The cell like G7 and L7, so the district line, is with an educator group. And ideally it would be people who we were, educators who were working in the school that we would be in. As you know, due to rezoning, staff is going to be dispersed. So, but what we're looking to do is bring a team of educators together, teachers from each content area, principal, family community engagement team member, so that they can have input on some of the design elements. And we have a job description for that. So that's really an middle school educator team. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Erin. So one thing we'll come back to, but we think the ideal time for community engagement is going to be sometime between mid-March and mid-April. So I think what I'd like to do is turn this over to Mount Vernon Group just to talk about their activity line. And then let's come back to the community engagement and talk a little bit about what the choices are for that. So Frank, Dennis, Chris, do you want to expand on these milestones?
We can just kind of go briefly through it. I don't see, we haven't, Erin, we haven't logged in what time we're going to go to the Good Now, which date. It's either going to be the 15th or the 17th. So one of those 2 afternoons, we're going to go to the Good Now school. I'm not sure what the number of people or who was going, but we had cleared that with the principal of the school. So that's an important date, but we don't have it yet, correct?
So this is February?
Yeah, February 15th or 17th. I was going to use time later in this meeting to ask people if they were available for a 3:30 visit.
Okay, great. Yeah, this would be a complete tour. And you have Amy, the principal, is very engaged with the project, and she's happy to point out anything and answer questions. She's very good. So I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, and then we are working on the design iterations. Dennis, with his team, is working on refining some of the things. What we do need that input from the users at this point, and that's being scheduled as well. So we have our meeting with city departments. It looks like that's set. We don't have an exact date on that yet. So that it's sort of like, I think that's an in-person meeting. If you want, we can do it virtually. But it's good, as we've talked about in our meeting earlier, was that it's good to lay out drawings on a table somewhere. Usually a lot of times these, what we call planning workshops, take place in a school cafeteria or some other meeting room where people can come in at various times that we schedule. Like one will come in from 9 to 10 and maybe 10 to 11. And they don't have to just be confined to that 1 hour. They can stay because some will be meeting with engineers, other with architects and so forth. And we will set that up as a meeting with the key people. And this mainly is, we're talking about police and fire departments, DPW, as well as we look at other groups that would be stakeholders and interested, such as handicapped accessibility group, if you have that in town, or any of those important groups that would have input or be important to know what's going on. And we'll be happy to meet with them. We take notes at those meetings, and we make sure that becomes part of what we are doing in the design. Once we run this by this committee and you've approved that, if they have a specific request, and I would say that 99 out of 100 of the requests are normally approved because they're usually pretty reasonable. I mean, it wouldn't be like somebody saying, well, I would like 2 swimming pools at the school. We're not going to begin designing those. So then the next thing would be, we have, our push is to get enough information on the school that's understood and approved by this committee as to the layout of the building and the site. And we get all the basic information for estimating to the estimators on March, what do we say the actual date? It's in the week of the 13th. So somewhere in that week, we get that to the estimators. And the estimators, and that's 2 independent estimators will do that. We give them about 3 weeks. So you can see on the week of April 3rd, there's what's called a reconciliation of the 2 estimates, so that between the 2 independent estimators, they come to an agreement on what the cost with contingencies is estimated at. Once that is accepted, that is going to be the project cost going forward. Now, remember, this project cost usually has, at this point, because of inflation worries and so forth, has contingencies in terms of price inflation and escalation as well, in terms of other things that may affect the cost. And then we move on to, what's the next one? I can't see that. Asset, to send notification. Okay. I'm not sure what that is, Margaret.
Yeah, so this is me. So the
okay.
estimates get reconciled this week.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
share them with you.
Okay.
That week, actually 2 weeks, there's a confirmed date, 2 weeks prior to the MSBA
Yeah.
date, I am required to notify them that we are on budget and planning to submit.
Okay.
And you can imagine why that is, because sometimes projects get to this point and they're like, oops, yeah, we're not ready. So
Yeah, right.
but once if we miss that deadline, we can't submit. So
yeah. So you have to notify them that it's coming, and then it is submitted on the 26th of April. So at that point, once it's submitted and we look at and everybody's satisfied with it, it's going to be approved by the board, which happens about a month or 6 weeks later after this date, 4 to 6 weeks after this date. The board for the MSBA will approve this. So we, because of the schedule, need to keep going and to keep prepping in the assumption that we will get this approval. And that's the only way, in my opinion, that we're going to meet the rather aggressive schedule in order to get you guys in by September of 25. So that's where we're going. After this is approved, we go directly into construction documents phase for about 6 months, and then we're out to bid by the end of the year. And we do look at what we call an early site package. The only way we can meet your schedule is to take all of this, a lot of site prep work, and do that while we're designing the rest of the building. So that's actually, the site work will begin while we're finishing the design for the general bid for the building itself. And that site work would include the abatement and demolition of the building, as well as the site prep. So there'd be rough grading and other grading throughout the site, so that when the general contractor comes to the site, whoever gets the low, and we're going to do competitive bids to get you the best price, that general contractor will be able to start the very next day, because they'll have a site that's already prepped and ready to go, and they can start construction immediately. See, the reason for doing the early site package is if you bid the whole thing, and sometimes that has happened where you bid this, all the early site package content as well as the building. Remember, the building can't start until all that stuff, which takes about 5 to 6 months to do, is done. So you have the whole, and so the contractors have to keep escalating their price for the building because they can't do anything. See, the building can't start until all this early site stuff is done. So we want to get that out of the way. It's much cheaper to do it with subcontractors doing it. Really, site and demolition contractors become like a general contractor. So you don't have the general contractor markup on all that site work and all the demolition work and everything. So it's very economical to do it that way. And it also gets it done so that when the general contractor comes and their job is to build the building, they start building. So we think it's a doable thing, and God willing, all things go well. No huge disasters happen or anything. and we should be able to get you into the school in September of 25.
Great, thank you. So at the beginning of each meeting, we'll give you an update on the schedule, but at this point I want to pause and find out who has questions. So can folks raise their hands, and maybe Aaron Burnell and Aaron Linville, you can help me call on folks. I see Mark has his hand up first.
Yeah, just a couple things. Will anyone from the school building committee be able to attend these meetings? I know some of them might be with educators or, other specific groups. And I just didn't know if it was also open to, any of us that maybe wanted to attend, just so we're maybe up to date and kind of feeling what, the temperature is of folks. And not be surprised when we hear of a change or something, later on.
Aaron Linville, do you want to respond to that?
To the educator group, I'd be happy to have 1 or 2 SBC members. I wouldn't want much more than that because we want the predominant voice to be the educators there. But then my question to Mount Vernon group would be, are there any questions that you'd be asking the educator group that perhaps the whole school building committee could weigh in on?
I think usually these things have to do with, sort of very esoteric in a way, educational ideas about adjacencies, about types of things that happen. So there's nothing that would need a special vote, if that's what you're asking of the school committee, because that's really, it's going to stay within the square footage. I mean, we can't add square footage. If somebody says, well, we need 3 more classrooms, that's not in the program. We can't do that. But there's a lot of refinement to the design that can happen. And it's usually an educator's, ballpark. And they appreciate that because they get to have their input and their influence on how they're going to run that school. So usually with the superintendent in attendance, so people don't go wild. And I just mean that facetiously, of course, but like they don't go off the, the track that we're on. We'll be able to satisfy most of their needs and requirements. But again, certainly other people that are not part of the education group can be there observing and make comments. I mean, we don't mind that.
So Aaron, do you want to say that there's space for 2 or 3 when you finalize the times? And then we can sort of see who's interested.
Sure. We're giving the educators a stipend. I just there would not be a stipend for non-educators.
Yeah.
We don't get a stipend anyway for doing this, so wouldn't expect.
You get just the professional satisfaction and enjoyment, Mark.
Well, can I just say you get my eternal gratitude if that's worth it.
Now I'm a rich man. Yeah. And then I just had one other comment. As we're moving forward, I think at some point we're going to have to, start talking with the city council about the early site package, because there are those risks associated, if the bids are outside of what we can afford, but we've kind of paid for the school demo beforehand. I just think that, that's going to be a debate, I feel, at city council that could be some time. And the sooner we kind of start laying that foundation, I think the better. That's all.
Yeah, I think Mark, it's important to point out that we're going to have a professional estimate before any of the pre-construction work goes ahead. And that professional reconciled estimate, it's a reconciliation between 2 independent cost estimators with a lot of contingency in it, will be the upper end of the cost of that school. So the city council will know what their risk is, so to speak, before they would have to pull the trigger on that. In the meantime, we would have all of our documents ready to go and on the site package, but I think they would have an opportunity to say, we're not ready to do this. I hope that's not the case, but I don't have the crystal ball that I sometimes think
we all dream of. So Mark, I will say when I first constructed this diagram, I did have a funding line at the bottom, and we will need to add a funding line that plugs in things. I took it out because I have not had a chance to sit down with the mayor yet and talk about and sort of pin some of those things down. But I totally agree that it needs to be included in the big picture of this process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but if your question was, they're not, people aren't going to go in the blind. If the
No.
cost that is on this, and I can say this, we have never had a project that we've ever done in Massachusetts since MSBA started, when they had this process, where we have not met or exceeded that cost. Normally, we come in at, like this Marlborough school that you looked at, they went through the same process. It was a model school. We got the funding thing. We came in over $10 million under that funding budget. So that I only say that because it means that that's your cost at the outside. That's your upper end of the cost with that estimate that we get at schematic. So
yeah,
it's
100%. It's just a matter of, as a former city councilor and have said in these meetings, the questions in meetings tend to linger. That's all. I'm just.
Well, everything is done here to protect the owner's interests. I mean, that's why these estimates are conservative. Thank God that inflation seems to be tamed, so they're not putting wild, kind of inflation factors in there, because it looks pretty good. It's not down completely. It's still there, but it's a lot less than it was, so it's more predictable. So those numbers you will get is going to be the number of the school. And I say from our experience, we've never exceeded that. Now, remember, before you actually have to pull the trigger, I mean, you would have to pull the trigger on the early site package in order to make this to be as efficient as it can be. So what happens during the design of the building is that we do the next phase would be to do a 60%, when 60% of the documents are completed. And for a model school, you just do it that one time. We do another estimate. This means when the drawings are pretty well advanced and everything has been selected, all the special equipment and all the details are pretty well done, and we're just getting it ready for a bid package, another estimate is done by two estimators and reconciled again. That's going to be the price. It's going to be within that price and bid, because bidding is going to happen within a couple of months of that estimate, 2 or 3 months of the estimate. They know what the price is at that point. So even at that time, I mean, you will know. And if it did come in a little high, we would start looking at value engineering to make sure it stays within your budget. So there are many tools we have to control the cost as it goes forward. And so I can tell you from our experience that, in all of our MSBA projects have always come in under the budget. I mean, the one in Ludlow nearby, that one came in $6 million under their approved MSBA budget. What does that mean to the community? Is that you don't have to spend the money. You've authorized it, but there's nobody says you have to spend it. So then you readjust. I know in Wareham, we came in 12 million under their approved budget. And that was just last year. They called it a windfall because that was 12 million that was directly part of the cost for the town that was beyond the MSBA reimbursement rate. So we're always striving to bring that number down. So the estimated number is always conservative, but it has to be, just in case things go up quickly or something, But our experience over the last 12 years with MSBA projects has been constantly that approved we struggle, and we always do get at or under that number.
All right. Are there other questions? I'm not seeing any hands up.
That's because we're like an army. We're just going to march to war and we're going to win.
Margaret, I have a question, Margaret.
Sure, Whitney.
Thank you. Frank, Mark is actually the leader of a building design group, or if you would, there's another name for it, I forget at the moment. But basically to look at the specifics in regards to the actual components and the attributes and the features and so forth that you had mentioned, that will be pretty much cast in stone at the 60%. When do you envision that perhaps over a couple of occurrences that we would be able to preview that document and discuss specifically, again, I think David Yost would be very interested in regards to the specifics that go into the various features of the building and any type of variability that may be able to be presented to the committee to give them options in regards to efficiencies that could be designed. When we were with you touring the Marlboro School, you had mentioned that that usually doesn't add up to a tremendous amount of money. I think you maybe even said maybe about a variability of 10% or so. But even at 10% at $50 million is relatively significant. So
Absolutely.
I guess what I'd like to do without feeling rushed or pressured, but also just to look towards that future of that 60% submittal. When do you envision how that would take place? And is that built into a schedule that we can all plan on, or at least agree to try to have that time made available to assess those?
Oh, absolutely. Whitney, I think that's an excellent idea. And I would say just form a group that would be a sort of a subgroup of this committee that could report back to them. And that meeting could happen at the when we're done, when we submit our schematic design, because it's actually more robust than you may think. The schematic has quite a bit, and we've already identified most of the materials on that, so that we could actually look at that. And the schematic design estimates are pretty comprehensive. They cover a lot of things. They make some assumptions, but it's there what it is and what the cost is. So we can go down, if you like, every line item in there, and you can ask questions about it. But I would say right at the schematic design, so we can incorporate them and have them in by the 60%. It's a lot harder to change things at 60% than it is that schematic. If you find some systemic things that you think, can we do some other material here? And we'll give you an honest answer. I mean, you don't want to reduce quality if you don't have to, so you want to make sure that, and there are some smart things that you can do, and we're always open for that. But I would say right after the schematic submittal, we should have that meeting with the subcommittee, and then the subcommittee and us can report back to this committee.
Thank you. And I'm also sure that you've seen other adaptations through your various designs with other committees where you've gleaned perhaps some insight from some revelation of design that you say, geez, that's not a bad idea. And
always, yeah.
Perhaps that will go, towards greater efficiency. So Mark and David, I think we're with Aaron to perhaps schedule or to coordinate or however that would happen, kind of teeing it up for us here so we can get in at an appropriate time to try and make some appropriate assessments when it's convenient to the process. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I see Jamie has a hand up.
So if we missed the April 26th MSBA deadline, when is the next deadline for the MSBA?
So great question. I happen to have their calendar open. So if you submit on April 26th and they accept your submittal, the MSBA meeting is on the 27th of June. And the next day after that is the next submittal. So you should think of it as like, for them, it's a 6 weeks to, in this case, 2 months cycle where literally the day after the board meeting, they're taking applications.
So obviously the 26th is our hard goal, but worst case scenario, we could put our submittal in for June if we didn't hit this super tight timeline.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
and honestly, you can put it in sooner. The thing that I find is that because they're on the cycle of getting to the board meeting, they generally won't look at the
They
submittal
won't look at it. Yeah, you're
until the board meeting and the cycle starts again. So
That's correct, Margaret. They were absolutely right.
and then that June 21st submittal is voted on August 30th. Now, I will say one important thing this is probably most important for the mayor to be aware of, but just for you all to be aware. A lot of times communities think that they cannot vote on their local funding until after the MSBA votes. And that's actually not the case. I've had a couple of projects where the local vote was before the MSBA vote. Some communities prefer to do it after the MSBA vote because it sort of gives the seal of approval in terms of, community discussion. But in this case, because if depending on whether you're going to have a debt exclusion, which I think the goal is not to have a debt override in this case, there are some choices, and the biggest issue is definitely going to be the point that Frank is making about wanting to like go forward really quickly, right, to meet that sort of overall deadline. So we will have a lot more discussions about that. And as a reminder, if you look at the Google Doc that was posted, it actually has the future MSBA on the first tab of that schedule. It has the other MSBA board deadlines, so you can see where they fall. I'm not going to pull it up now. So,
Margaret,
Just
the
to add to that,
MSBA, they wouldn't take their vote till June, the end of June.
so if we submit April 26th, they vote June 27th.
And then
If we submit June 21st, they vote August 30th.
yeah, let's forget that. We're going with April 26th. We're marching on, as Frank said, right?
Yeah.
The only reason I'm bringing this up is then the city council is off for the summer.
Yeah.
So maybe those discussions of voting beforehand are appropriate.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I could add to that it is a vote, but it's a vote that's dependent and reliant on the actual vote of the board. So it's not like it's a done deal. It's not done until the board votes. It's just done before the board votes, but it's tied to the board vote. It's null and void if for some reason they say, hey, we stopped funding schools now, so we're not going to give you the money. So you're not on the hook for anything. So it's just a matter of getting it done with the assumption that it will be approved. But for some crazy reason, if it is not approved, then there's no vote. So there's no risk really until, but we know from past experience that in order to get through the rigorous recommendation, they have to go through all the documents, and then the MSBA agency itself needs to recommend this to the board. And the board does not go against their recommendation. So you have to pass the bar of the recommendation. So the council would not be at risk if they were to vote it, if they want the school, and then it only comes into effect after the vote.
Exactly. Okay.
I would just like to add to Mark's point about the council being on vacation is that, one would think that we also don't want to go to them for a vote right before elections, because we don't want them to say, oh, well, we're leaving office. This should be dealt with after the new ones come in, which would put us off until the following year. So I think the sooner that we're ready, obviously, the city, Mayor Garcia needs to be ready for us to propose. But I would say the sooner, in the season, the better.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point, Aaron.
Yeah.
Let me put it, this may be a little bit unfair, but I want to ask Frank and Dennis and Chris if they have any questions for the committee, since this is your first chance to be to be looking in this direction.
Well, I want to know where the best restaurants are around, because when I'm down there, I like to have lunch and things like that.
No problem.
Yeah, great.
I actually have a YouTube series, Frank. It's called Paper City Eats. That's got some of the good restaurants in Holyoke on it.
What's it called?
Paper City Eats. You can find it on YouTube.
Papers to the East. All right.
Aaron, this is your YouTube? Or
Yeah.
the city's YouTube?
Yeah,
Aaron Brunel's restaurant recommendations? All right.
Yeah. We won't talk about it now. I started it during COVID to help support the restaurants. But yeah, some of them aren't open anymore, but it's still a good resource.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I always like to get a good feel for the town. I've been through because we're over in Chicopee, and we'd go there for briefings and things like that, and we'd stay in town for a little bit. So we know, and I know we read the local paper a little bit because it covers the Chicopee papers covers some stuff that's going on in Holyoke. So there is sort of a Western Massachusetts city sort of alliance there. And so, we've been in Chicopee a long time, and we did both the Chicopee High School and the Chicopee Comprehensive High School there. So two very successful projects. And if I told you what the Chicopee Comprehensive High School cost, it's going to make you cry, because it's 340,000 square feet, and the construction bid was 73 million.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I know. Those were the good days. It was the
How
mid
much time
2000s.
has changed?
Yeah, and they got 90% reimbursement.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
But, you know, so it is, we're familiar with the area. We want to get to know Holyoke more and get to know you more. And certainly our numbers are available. I work out of my cell phone, so you can call me if any of you wants to call me directly. I don't mind that at all.
All righty. So I'm not seeing other hands, but so I'd like to toggle back to the schedule and talk about community engagement, and also circle back to the visit to the Goodnow School. And Erin, while I'm pulling this up, I think you, having recently led so much community engagement, I want to look to you to make a suggestion about, there's so many different ways to do this, but I think you have a notion in your head about how you would like to approach this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Margaret. And I would love, of course, not of course you're talking to me, but thank you for talking to me. And of course, I would like everyone's input. My initial thought, and I definitely want to talk to Anthony and Josh and Erin about this, but would be for there to be one public meeting and one virtual meeting, and have different forms of giving. And then we could record that virtual meeting too, and have different ways of giving feedback. Like some might be, I'd have to know more about how Mount Vernon Group structures it, but some of it could be some small group discussion, answering questions, but I would also want there to be like a survey at the end, so that people who felt more comfortable just putting their suggestions in writing could do so. That's my initial thoughts, open to feedback.
Yeah, that's excellent. And during, as we talked earlier, Erin, Hector Torres, who is our interpreter, will be available for those. The only night he's not available is the Thursday nights. He's finishing up his work at university.
For this semester. So we'll see more of Hector, I think, after.
And starting in the summer, he's available all the time. So, I mean, that sounds great. Yeah, to record what people say, to really answer a lot of questions. And it's at the time where we have enough to show them the actual design that's going forward, and, you know, renderings and things like that. And they can answer questions, and they're usually pretty good. And it's good for the community to have an opportunity to see what's going on.
Erin, I was thinking too, I would say it's probably a good time to bring back, to start working in our subcommittees again. So we could certainly have a communications subcommittee to come up and kind of formalize a strategy and a plan. We should start doing, social media marketing and all kinds of things, so we can meet and then bring back some ideas as well.
And to help you with that, we can, Erin, we can actually provide any kind of promotional materials like renderings and site plans and all that. We often put together a very simple, we would call a trifold brochure made out of an 8.5 by 11, which has a lot of information on the project, on the cost of the project, on what's good about the project, why you're doing it now, why now is always a question, and we try to work with you to come up with that, so that can be widely distributed as well as put online.
Yeah, it would be great if somebody from the group could probably sit in on our subcommittee meeting.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, Frank, one of the talking points I think would be great to get from you guys is just overemphasizing how many of your projects come under budget. I think that's going to be really beneficial for us, especially when we do go in front of council.
Sure.
So that's just great little tidbits to get out there, adding to the fact of why we chose you guys as a designer.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We have a record, and it's our firm's been around since 1954, so it's an old Massachusetts school design firm, And so we've been tracking, MSBA has done the courtesy of tracking everybody's projects. And so we just go according to the tracking, and all of our projects have been below the average consistently ever since MSBA started in around 2009. So those are tracked and they're on their website and everything else, and you can actually see that.
Margaret has given us a breakdown of that.
Yeah. And so, a lot of people, because everybody's wondering, the first thing they say is, oh, you must be cutting, costs and things. It's going to be like a cheap building. And I think that's good for you go to a good now school. No one will call that a cheap building. It's a very handsome building, has lots of very fine qualities to it. So we've sort of debunked that thing because we just are able. I've asked contractors why they bid our projects, and there's ones that we have a group of contractors that always follow us. One of them being a local one here, Fontaine Brothers. They've done about 8 schools for us over the years since 1988, and they basically, the 5 contractors that I contacted about this, they said basically the same thing. They said that our projects are easy to build. They're not, they can follow the directions. They separate the trades are coordinated, and they can get into them quickly and make money. And also that we work with them during construction to make sure things go smoothly. And so those couple of things, they're not written in any contract, but it's how you get jobs done that have allowed them to go in and get out quickly, do the stuff efficiently. And that's where they make money. And that's why their bids are lower.
Right.
It's really that simple.
Yeah, and we already, just so folks know, we already have begun to write a letter to inform stakeholders about, since we have such a good big announcement, and with questions like, why are we going the model school route? Why did we choose Mount Vernon Group? What are next steps? So people can expect that information will start to get more out in the community as early as next week, so that we can bring the middle school building project into the forefront of folks' minds again.
That's great. Well, I just got one question on the community group. Should I be wearing a flak jacket when I go there? That's a joke.
What kind of
a flak jacket, which means that am I going to be are people going to be taking pot shots at us?
City council, maybe.
Yeah, okay. I'll wear it for the city council. Okay.
There is a place that's needed. It's not the community meetings.
Okay. I'll be ready.
We really enjoy bringing the project to the community because, our philosophy is about building schools, about designing schools, places for kids to learn, and doing it with a responsibility to following the program, the educational program that the communities put forth, but also building it not as a pipe dream, but as a reality, something, because certainly the most important component of the whole design process is the budget. And we're very concerned with the taxpayers' money. We understand building materials that are tried and true. We don't experiment with new ideas, and we use materials that contractors are used to using. There are really good contractors out there that do it well, and they're tried and true materials that have stood the test of time. And so we keep that in mind, and it's great to talk to the community and get a feel for what they see the iconography of a school should be, rather than what an architect might think the school should be. I mean, we certainly have our ideas, but every community has its own flavor and its own culture, and we want to be able to glean that from you folks and build something that looks to the community like a school and will forever be that. So we're excited.
All right, it's 7:05. I want to just say this is probably the last 1 hour building committee meeting we will have between now and May. So just get ready. Okay. But I think, Aaron, what other content do we need to cover before we wrap up?
We just need to approve some minutes, and on the agenda, there's an error for our next scheduled meeting date. And
Aaron B, could we ask people about the February, if they're available to visit the Good Now School on February 15th or 17th? Maybe we could give everyone a minute to look at their calendars, and then it would be really helpful, I think, just to go around and call on people's names so I can figure out.
While you're talking about dates, when exactly is our next meeting? Because the agenda says February 3rd, and that's clearly not correct.
Oh, sorry. It's Thursday, February 16th.
Okay. Want to be clear on that as well.
Yeah.
All right. So while everyone's thinking about that, I'll entertain a motion to approve. We're approving 2 sets of minutes at the same time, if that's cool with everybody. They're the 2 previous meeting minutes. So if people have had a chance to review those, I will entertain a motion to approve and adopt the minutes. Anybody?
I second that.
Okay, who gave the motion?
Peter.
Okay, so Peter gives the motion, and I think it was Jessica who seconded. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the minutes, folks? All right, seeing none, I'll take a raise of hands for all those that approve the minutes. Oh, sorry, Mr. Garcia?
Oh, I'm raising my hand.
You're showing your hand. Okay. Thank you very much. Digital or physical hand, either one, folks. Thanks so much. Keep them up for a second so Aaron can count. All right, I think that's unanimous. Are you all set, Ms. Linville? All right, thank you. Anybody who doesn't approve the minutes, show of hands. All right, thank you all so much. So back to Aaron's question, if people are available to tour the Good Now School, I believe you said, Aaron, on the 15th of February?
It would be Wednesday, February 15th at 3:30 or Friday, February 17th at 3:30. And I believe it's an hour and a half drive from Holyoke, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
We can carpool.
Okay. So maybe if someone could just call through everybody and I'll write it down.
Yeah, I'll call folks. So Camilla, is Camilla following? Actually,
just like either one or both.
So February 15th or 17th for a school visit.
Yeah. And not their top choice, but like are you available for both? And we'll just choose which one has the most people.
I will available for 17 because on the 15 I have appointment.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you. David Yost.
He had to leave, I think.
Oh, okay. We'll come back to him. Deborah Vega.
I'm not available the 15th, but I think I could squeak in the 17th. Would we leave around 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
I finish teaching at 2 o'clock, so I could, scoot to that carpool.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Jamie. Well, Jamie, you've been before. Do you want to go again? No. Okay. Jessica Perella.
I am better available the 17th. So my spring semester starts next week. Woohoo! But if I can do it, it would be the 17th.
Okay. Kathy Ortiz?
I wrote in the chat I can do the 15th, and like Deborah, I can run after school because I work in the school. So but I work in Springfield, so where it's gonna be the midpoint or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So the 15th and 17th are okay. It's just you might be a little bit late. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I can do the 15th, but I work in Springfield and I work after 2 o'clock. So that day I can go out early, but I'm just saying that I'm gonna be coming from Springfield. If I drive myself to the place or where it's gonna be the midpoint or whatever.
Well, it sounds like maybe let's plan on a 4 o'clock start. So let's just assume a 4 o'clock start in the 15th or 17th to give some
time. Does that work?
Okay. I think that works better, yeah, because it's gonna be kind of a little hectic for me being in Springfield and then trying to figure it out, like, running back here. So
Kathy, you said 15th and 17th?
15th. No, 17th. If it's at 4 o'clock, I can do both. No, lies. I can do only the 15th. The 17th,
Okay.
I'll be out of town at that time. So 15.
Okay.
I should mention the preference of the school's principal is the 15th, but she said the 17th is her second choice. So that, just to let you know, she'll do either one. So, but.
All right. So Mark Lubold, do you want to go back, having been? Mark Lubold. Oh, there he is.
I don't necessarily have to go back. I don't.
Okay, so we'll let you know when it lands, and you might come. Peter Tallman.
No, I won't be able to make either date. I'm sorry.
Okay, Raina, do you?
I've already gone.
You've gone. So okay, so you're good.
Did you like it, Raina?
I did. I enjoyed
I
the tour.
remember.
It was very nice. So I recommend, if you can make it, to see it. Yeah. It's always nice to have a visual.
Yeah.
Whitney, do you want a second round?
I'm game for anything, but is there any school that's closer, Frank, that might be comparable, that might open up some other alternatives for people who may be challenged with time?
Well, we just finished the school in Ludlow, but that's not the same school. It's our style. That one came in $6 million under budget, and it has a lot of the same features that our model school does and that this does, but it is a lot closer.
When was that one built?
It was just opened just past September. When was it open, Chris?
This is their second year, so it opened
2 years ago. Yeah,
it opened last fall a year ago.
Yeah, a year
So
ago.
this is Harrisbrook.
Harrisbrook Elementary School. Yeah.
There's actually a very nice drone footage of the building online. We'll send everybody the link. Whitney, I think I would suggest that we get to the point that everybody has the same level of knowledge about this.
Right. And so with that in mind, I currently am aware of the beautiful features of the Marlboro School. All I would say is, in regards to Josh's, not a comment, but just a question in regards to when it was built, what Frank says is many of the features are quite similar. And I've looked at quite a few of the buildings that Mount Vernon has put forward. And with that in mind, I think that what you feel when you go into these structures is a beautiful experience that is quite common to most of these structures. So despite the fact that it has a little slight different orientation with the layout, you get that feeling even at Ludlow that you would get in Marlboro. That's my feeling.
Okay.
But, so I'm all set on the tour.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think there's definitely an opportunity, I think, also to visit Ludlow, but I'm trying to get to the point that everybody's seeing the same thing. So,
sure.
Superintendent Soto, how about you?
Yeah, we have a retreat scheduled on the 15th that we're scheduled to be there till
We'll get done
about
at
4,
2:30.
so 2:30. Okay. So yeah, that might work for me.
And the 17th is okay.
The 17th is would be tougher.
Okay.
But if I had to make it work, I would make it work.
Okay. Aaron Brunel?
Yeah, either date actually works fine with me. It's far enough in advance that I can plan around. And I can drive. I have a 7-passenger.
And Mayor Garcia, I know this is probably the most challenging for you. I think what we should probably do is pick the date, unless you feel like you absolutely.
If you haven't noticed by now, I really want to empower this group to really guide and lead in these efforts, and I try my best to. So I'm going to trust those that are visiting and reviewing and to come back and I trust those that are actively involved.
I wonder So at most we only have 3 people who can go. So I kind of wonder if we should take a pause. Wendy can go, but take a pause because we could be adding people to this committee too, or we might want to invite the educators who won't be selected yet. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we should look at some dates in March and come back to this group with a survey. And then maybe I could get out some Ludlow dates and some other March dates, if that's okay with Aaron and Josh. Let's go with that.
I think you're pretty much split on these 2 dates, so it doesn't seem like any time that week is the ideal time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely feel it'd be great to get some of the educators down there.
Yeah, and they won't be selected yet. So
yeah.
Let's go to the drawing board for March dates. I'll follow up with you all.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So Aaron, did you have anything else on the agenda you want to talk about? We did the meeting minutes.
Yeah, if Mayor Garcia wanted to update the subcommittee on his presentation yesterday to finance, if he felt like there was anything that we should know, and then that would be it.
How many folks, did anybody participate and watch at all? And if you haven't, the recording is up on the website. And actually, Mark, I'd be curious to hear what your, or any member that participated, kind of what your key takeaway was.
Well, it was kind of hard, watching at home to really get a feel for what the council members thought.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good start with the forecast. I think it's certainly something vital. I saw that we tucked in some bonding money for 2028 for this project, and hopefully it comes even under that. But by and large, looking at watching from home, it was kind of hard to kind of follow. That wasn't your fault by any means, or even the presenter. I think a packet was given a few weeks before, some other information to the council, which I don't think we were privy to. So it was hard to follow along and kind of understand what I can't remember the woman's name presenting.
Andrea.
Yeah, so it was kind of hard from that standpoint. But I did, download the PDF that was online and took a look at it, and it's pretty straightforward. So,
Lorenzi, did you watch?
I did, and I was going to say what Mark said. It was just hard to follow because we were missing that workbook that Andrea kept referencing to, and the number of pages. Even though she put it up slightly at the end when there was a moment of discussion with the council. So my question would be is that going to be available for us to watch?
I can forward that workbook to you. I think it was on the Mark. Were you able to download it? You said. Yeah,
from I think I just typed in Holyoke Finance Committee meeting, and the whole list of handouts came up, and there's a PDF there of that. It's 16 pages or something.
I'll make sure that. Yeah, whatever you don't get, you having trouble, let me know. I just want to make sure you, before I give more comments on it. Anthony, did you see the meeting?
Yeah, I did see the meeting. I think the biggest, suggestion that I would make in using that tool is that one of the major assumptions in there was talking about school salaries projections being an important factor into this. And I would just urge you and your team that's not really an important factor unless the city is ever planning on funding the schools above net school spending. So the factor on the school side, which is a huge part of your budget, is going to be that net school spending number and whatever happens with transportation. Those are the 2 key pieces on the school side that are going to have a real impact on any future forecasting. Doing anything with salaries on the schools is kind of pointless unless you're giving me the green light to give everybody raises, and it doesn't matter if we're net school spending or not.
Slow down. Slow down.
Yeah.
So, and I did make note of that too when she made that comment, and was going to talk to her afterward about it. But I think in general, it's important to folks know that what was presented and that document, when you see it, is the baseline of an ongoing development of the tool to better forecast out what our revenue and expense situation might be between now and the next 5 years. And with the assumptions there, and we included this particular project, and as presented, there is a reflection of a balanced budget. And so we just gotta, myself and the council internally and it doesn't really necessarily include, that just assumes full responsibility of our own appropriation, doesn't include other alternative revenue sources I anticipate leveraging to keep our costs much lower than anticipated. It just assumes, that our, absorb of 100% of our shared costs of the project. So those are the little back end creative things we're trying to do to keep the cost lower as much as possible. But the way presented currently, and there's still more work we have to do, more data we need to populate as our contracts come to fruition with unions, as we learn, get a better understanding of what our projected increases might be in other areas, whether if it's insurance and other uncontrolled costs. So, again, I think as far as the council is concerned, appreciative of the tool, and there was some discussions based on what was presented, things that came up, questions that counselors had. But I feel good that this tool is going to allow us to kind of help us navigate and see out, even if there was something in the budget that might be a barrier or that might cause an impact or a negative impact, that we can see it and potentially pivot in other areas to help us avoid those impacts. So I thought that was a good takeaway and something that I'm very looking forward to use this document for. So this is only the beginning. Obviously there's more work we have to do to include as we go through our next, and that's where we really get to learn more about how we strengthen this tool as we go through our budget planning process. So what's neat about Andrea, she didn't just come a couple months ago and create this. She was the consultant I hired that helped us get through my first budget, working together with our auditor. So she was able to be in the trenches with us behind the scenes, putting that budget together and learn more about our community, our financial situation. And it was that experience that allowed her to get to a pretty decent forecasting model. But certainly, as we go forward, here we are now, we're going to get ready for our second round, my second year of the budget making process for the city. And so she's going to be working hand in hand with that yet again, continuing to strengthen that document to make it as much realistic as possible. So to say the least, I think we're rolling in a positive direction. One at a time. One at a time.
It's linked on the box cast is linked in our agenda, guys, which I'll put back in the chat again so you can watch it. I know I was going to watch it while doing dishes this weekend or folding laundry.
Mr.
Oh yeah, Peter was there. Peter,
what was that?
What was your takeaway?
I was there for.
You're
part
on
of
the
that,
committee.
meeting, yeah. No, you did a great job. I think that's one of the first times I've been on Finance Committee for a number of years, and the first times that we've had a 5-year, look at the future budget, and that's important. I mean, and as she stated, and you stated, it's a starting point. It's like this is what we have to work on, and things are going to change. There's going to be some fluidity in things happening down the road, but definitely was a good start. And we got to see what down the road. Can we afford this plan, this project? 20 years down the road. So, you're setting us up for the future. Revenue coming in, the other ways that you're going to try to work in different options that we can do other than just the regular day-to-day budget, but it's important that, we're upfront with the council and the finance committee, because there are definitely going to be some questions, from the general counsel. And I think it's important that we look at everything, as I stated before with the other two schools, it was different. It was two at once, and, the voters made their choice. And this is something, and I think Aaron said earlier, we got to do some, social networking. We got to get it out there, and as much as we can, to let the public know that this is something for the community, not just the students, but for the city as a whole. And, hopefully we build that into the building, where there's going to be some community space for this, the school. And that's really important. But I think Aaron mentioned earlier about Aaron Linville, about the community meeting. I know we've had several meetings at the senior center, so I think that might be a spot to look into, because that holds a lot of people for the in-person one. I think that'd be great, down the road. And just a quick question, since we have to trying to submit this to the 26th, Margaret, does that mean we have to do a vote with the council before then?
No.
We don't. Okay.
No, the issue is not the submission. The issue is being in a position to authorize Mount Vernon Group to keep going on a very aggressive schedule.
Okay.
The MSBA is very accustomed to communities not taking their appropriation vote until after the board votes. As I was saying, that's the typical condition. It's not a requirement. And why I think what you are doing is likely to look different.
Okay. So more than likely, the council or the finance committee will bring to the council probably sometime in the summer or the fall, our vote.
Hopefully sooner than fall.
Well, I would hope so too, but I'm just thinking of the summer recess, because we have just
hopefully
one
Peter,
meeting in August.
Hopefully, Peter, you guys can vote on it before the SBA, MS, whatever they're called.
Yeah, MSBA?
Yes.
MSBA.
Well, Margaret said that you usually do it afterwards, so I don't know.
No. I was saying this will be different.
Okay.
I was saying people will say, "Oh, but you can't do that." No, that is not the case. You can, and frankly, if you want to pursue the schedule that Mount Vernon is proposing, you must take an earlier vote.
Yeah, it's a vote that's contingent upon the vote of the MSBA. So it doesn't take effect until it's approved.
Approved by them. Okay, so more than likely, sometime in June before we recess, we'll be taking a vote, just so we have an idea.
End of April, toward the end of April, early June, yes.
Okay.
And I think it's quite safe to take it, because it doesn't take effect. It's contingent upon that vote of MSBA, but there's no drama there. It will get voted. If it gets accepted by the agency, the board will vote it through. I mean, there hasn't been a single vote that has not gone through that's been recommended to them, as far as to my knowledge.
Okay.
Well, there's one, but it was nothing like this project. So
I didn't know about that one. So yeah.
But
if that were the case here, then your vote would not take any effect.
Yeah.
If for some reason they said, well, let's hold up on Holyoke's vote, your vote would not take effect then.
Right. And I think to Aaron and Mark's point that, to get this in the committee, the finance committee, and then discuss it could take, a couple, four meetings. So you figure you'd have to get in there by March or April, early April and May, and then we could take a vote in either the first or second meeting in June, because then we recess after the June meeting till August, the first meeting, first Tuesday in August.
See, we're going to have to make sure that we have the number. See, because
right.
So that after the reconciliation, that would be the earliest you could take it, is that we have a number for the project.
Right, that's why I was going to comment. I mean, the timing really also depends on the number, and then the mayor's office feeling comfortable that they're ready to present to show how the city will be paying for it. So, Margaret, I'm assuming this is like something that the Finance Subcommittee should be working with the mayor's office to start to develop, like, timeline and when we think and how it's going to break out?
Definitely.
Okay. I know David's not with us anymore, but I know he runs that meeting, so we could let him know to try to start having some meetings to discuss with the mayor's office on the formulas and the timelines and when we expect numbers and, you know, when they would feel comfortable going forward to the council.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have anything else that they'd like to discuss this evening before we adjourn? All right, seeing nothing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Tallman. I need a second on that.
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, any discussion? Any last minute comments, concerns? Seeing none, we will take a vote on adjourning. Can I have a show of hands, please? I'm sure it's unanimous. We're just down Mr. Yost because he had to leave early. All right, anybody not want to adjourn? All right, the meeting is officially adjourned at 7:31. Thank you all. Be checking your emails in the next week or so for some updates on scheduling some subcommittees, and then we will see you guys back in 2 weeks. Have a great evening. And
Thank you. Take care.
Yes,
Good night,
staff,
Chris and
enjoy the
Frank.
day off tomorrow.
Thanks very much.
No school tomorrow, right?
No school
Bye-bye.
tomorrow. It's gonna be too
No.
cold.
Good night, Dennis.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.